The dimly lit back rooms of smoky bars, the clinking of glasses filled with illicit liquor, the hushed whispers of powerful men. These images, etched into our minds by the Godfather, hint at a world shrouded in secrecy and danger. A world where loyalty and betrayal dance a deadly tango. This is the world of the Mafia. The very word conjures up images of ruthless gangsters and brutal violence. But beyond the Hollywood facade lies a chilling truth. Real men driven by ambition, greed, and an insatiable thirst for power. Frank Costello, Carlo Gambino, Lucky Luciano, these were the real Godfathers. Their stories, often shrouded in mystery, are more compelling than fiction. They rose from humble beginnings, clawing their way to the top through ruthlessness and cunning. They controlled politicians, judges, and law enforcement. Their influence was pervasive, their power undeniable. But who were these men behind the myth? What drove them to seek power in the darkest corners of society? This is the story of the real Godfathers. Stripped bare of Hollywood glamour, revealing the raw, brutal truth behind their rise to power. Witness the rise and fall of empires built on blood and fear. The world first met Vito Corleone, the Godfather, through Mario Puzo's novel and Coppola's film. But how much of The Godfather was fiction, and how much was drawn from the mafia underworld? The line between fact and fiction blurs as we delve into the lives of real-life mobsters. Men like Frank Costello, Carlo Gambino, and Lucky Luciano. Their stories provide a chilling glimpse into the heart of organized crime. These were not fictional characters, but flesh and blood men. Their ambition knew no bounds, their ruthlessness unmatched. They lived and breathed the brutal realities of the mafia. Few figures loom as large as Frank Costello. Known as the Prime Minister of the underworld, Costello was a stark contrast to the stereotypical mafia boss. His power lay in his cunning intellect and political manipulation. Born Francesco Castiglia in Calabria, Italy, Costello immigrated to New York City as a young boy. He quickly learned the harsh realities of life on the Lower East Side. It was here that he crossed paths with Charles Lucky Luciano. Together they formed a formidable partnership. Costello recognized that true power lay in cultivating influence within the legitimate world. Costello's influence extended far beyond smoky speakeasies. He became a confidant to powerful politicians and controlled the judiciary. The heart of Costello's empire was the slot machine racket. Millions of dollars flowed into his coffers, solidifying his position. Costello's influence seeped into every facet of New York life. He controlled labor unions, extorted businesses, and manipulated the stock market. His reign, however, was not without its challenges. The Godfather hearings would soon cast a bright spotlight on Costello's empire. In 1950, Senator Estes Kefauver launched a nationwide investigation into organized crime. The Kefauver hearings, broadcast live on television, exposed the mafia's inner workings. Frank Costello was summoned to testify. His appearance was a media sensation. Millions tuned in to witness the mob boss grilled under the public eye. The hearings revealed the depth of Costello's political connections. His testimony provided a rare glimpse into the mafia's influence on American society. The hearings marked a turning point in public perception, galvanizing support for a crackdown on organized crime. Although Costello evaded serious legal repercussions, his world began to crumble. His public humiliation emboldened rivals within the mafia. On May 2, 1957, a lone gunman emerged from the shadows. A single shot rang out, wounding Costello but leaving him alive. The assassination attempt marked the end of an era. The shooting, orchestrated by Vito Genovese, sent a clear message. Costello ceded control of his enterprises to Genovese and faded into the background. The once powerful Prime Minister had become a cautionary tale. While Costello captivated the public eye, Carlo Gambino quietly consolidated power. Born in Sicily in 1902, Gambino immigrated to the US as a teenager. He arrived in New York City during Prohibition, a time of burgeoning organized crime. Unlike Costello, Gambino understood that true control lay in the shadows. He shunned the limelight, preferring to operate behind a veil of secrecy. He rose through the ranks with a quiet ruthlessness. Gambino forged alliances, eliminated threats, and kept his ultimate goal in sight: to become the capo di tutti capi, the boss of bosses. Gambino possessed a keen intellect and an understanding of strategy. He compared the mafia to a game of chess, always staying several steps ahead. He preferred to wield power through cunning and manipulation. Gambino's rise was marked by strategic alliances and power plays. He aligned with powerful figures like Meyer Lansky and Vito Genovese. Gambino was not above eliminating rivals who threatened his ascent. The assassination of Albert Anastasia in 1957 cemented Gambino's reputation. He became a force to be reckoned with in the underworld. With Anastasia out of the picture, Gambino assumed control of the Gambino crime family. He inherited a vast criminal enterprise. Under Gambino's leadership, the family flourished. He enforced strict codes of conduct, demanding loyalty and discretion. Gambino shunned the trappings of wealth and power. He lived modestly, preferring to blend in rather than stand out. He became known as the boss of bosses. Gambino built a criminal empire that spanned generations. Carlo Gambino met an ironic end. In 1976, he died peacefully in his own bed of natural causes. His death sent shockwaves through the underworld. The boss of bosses was gone, and the question of succession loomed large. Gambino had reportedly chosen his cousin, Paul Castellano, as his successor. This decision ignited a power struggle within the Gambino family. Carlo Gambino's legacy is a complex and contradictory one. His story remains a chilling reminder of the brutal realities of organized crime. Charles Lucky Luciano, a name synonymous with ruthlessness and innovation, was the architect of the modern mafia. Born Salvatore Lucania in Sicily in 1897, Luciano immigrated to New York City as a child. He rose through the ranks of the 5 Points gang. Luciano possessed a sharp mind and a keen understanding of power dynamics. He recognized the instability of the mafia's existing structure. He envisioned a new world order, one where cooperation replaced violence. During Prohibition, Luciano saw an opportunity to seize control. He reshaped the underworld in his image, forever altering the landscape of organized crime. Luciano, with his characteristic blend of ruthlessness and strategic brilliance, orchestrated a series of audacious power moves. He forged alliances with key figures like Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel, Jewish gangsters who recognized the potential of Luciano's vision. Together, they waged a bloody war against the old guard of the mafia, eliminating rivals like Joe Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano, the last of the Moustache Petes who clung to the old ways. With his enemies vanquished, Luciano called a meeting of the most powerful mafia leaders in 1931. This clandestine gathering, shrouded in secrecy, would mark a turning point in the history of organized crime. It was here that Luciano proposed his revolutionary idea, the formation of the Commission. The Commission would serve as a governing body for the mafia, a council of bosses representing the 5 families of New York City and other powerful crime syndicates across the country. Disputes would be settled through negotiation and arbitration rather than bloodshed. Territories and rackets would be divided, ensuring a steady stream of profits for all involved. Luciano's vision was not born out of altruism, but rather a cold, calculating understanding of power. He recognized that a unified mafia operating under a clear set of rules and a centralized leadership structure would be far more profitable and less susceptible to law enforcement than a chaotic network of feuding gangs. Section 3. Exile and the Shadow of Power. Luciano's reign as the undisputed boss of bosses was short-lived. His growing power and influence attracted the attention of law enforcement, particularly a young and ambitious prosecutor named Thomas Dewey, who was determined to break the back of organized crime in New York City. In 1936, Dewey's relentless pursuit of Luciano culminated in a conviction on charges of compulsory prostitution. Luciano, despite his protests of innocence, was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison. It seemed that his reign of power had come to an abrupt and ignominious end. However, Luciano was far from finished. Even behind bars, his influence remained undiminished. He continued to run his criminal empire from his prison cell, relying on loyal associates like Meyer Lansky to carry out his orders. During World War II, Luciano struck a controversial deal with the US government. In exchange for his alleged cooperation in preventing sabotage on the New York waterfront, Luciano's sentence was commuted in 1946. He was deported to Italy, his return to the United States forever barred. Exile, however, did little to diminish Luciano's power. He established a base of operations in Italy, using his vast network of contacts to oversee a lucrative drug trafficking operation that stretched from Europe to the United States. The man who had once ruled the streets of New York City now held court from afar, a shadowy figure whose influence extended across continents. Section 4. The Godfather's Blueprint. Lucky Luciano's impact on organized crime cannot be overstated. He was a visionary criminal, a ruthless pragmatist who understood the power of structure, organization, and strategic alliances. He transformed the mafia from a chaotic network of feuding gangs into a highly sophisticated, ruthlessly efficient criminal enterprise, a blueprint that continues to influence organized crime to this day. His legacy, however, is a complex and troubling one. He was a ruthless criminal responsible for countless acts of violence and corruption. Yet he was also a product of his environment, a man who rose from the mean streets of New York City to become a legend in the annals of organized crime. Luciano's life and crimes served as a source of inspiration for Mario Puzo's iconic novel The Godfather and Francis Ford Coppola's cinematic masterpiece. The character of Vito Corleone, with his quiet charisma, strategic brilliance, and unwavering commitment to family and tradition, bears a striking resemblance to the real-life Luciano. While the fictional Corleone may have operated under a code of honor, the real-life Luciano was driven by a more pragmatic and ruthless set of principles. He understood that power, once attained, must be protected at all costs, and that loyalty in the world he inhabited was a commodity to be bought, sold, and ruthlessly enforced. Section 1. Birthplace of Legends. The name Corleone. Even whispered, it carries a weight, a chilling familiarity that transcends mere geography. It evokes images of sun-drenched vineyards, ancient stone buildings and men of quiet menace, their words carrying the weight of unspoken threats. Thanks to Mario Puzo's fictional portrayal, Corleone, a small, unassuming town nestled in the rugged heart of Sicily, became synonymous with the Mafia's origin story. But the reality of Corleone, as with most things touched by the Mafia's shadow, is a blend of myth and chilling truth. Long before Hollywood cast its spell, Corleone existed in relative obscurity, a world away from the bustling streets of New York City where the American Mafia rose to power. Yet, beneath its rustic charm, a darker history simmered. Sicily for centuries had been a land where power was often seized, not inherited, and where vendettas were settled in blood, passed down through generations. It was in this crucible of poverty, tradition and violence that the seeds of the Sicilian Mafia, Cosa Nostra, were sown. And Corleone, with its strategic location and impenetrable air of secrecy, would become a breeding ground for some of the most ruthless and ambitious mobsters in history. Life in Corleone for many generations was defined by a rigid social hierarchy. A world where landowners held sway over impoverished farmers, and where the rule of law often bowed to the unspoken codes of honor and vengeance. It was in this environment, where poverty and opportunity were often two sides of the same coin, that the Mafia flourished. Young men, seeking escape from the drudgery of farm life or seeking retribution for perceived injustices, found solace and a perverse sense of belonging within the Mafia's ranks. They were drawn to the allure of power, the promise of wealth, and the intoxicating sense of brotherhood forged in a world where trust was a rare commodity. The Mafia in its early days operated in the shadows, its power rooted in the fear it instilled in the local populace. They were protectors, extortionists, and judge, jury, and executioner all rolled into one. Their influence permeated every aspect of life in Corleone, from local politics to the agricultural businesses that formed the backbone of the town's economy. But the Mafia's reach extended far beyond the borders of this small Sicilian town. As waves of Sicilian immigrants fleeing poverty and seeking opportunity made their way to the shores of America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they carried with them the traditions and codes of Cosa Nostra, planting the seeds for what would become the American Mafia. The Corleone of The Godfather, with its romanticized portrayal of Mafia life and its air of old-world charm, bears little resemblance to the brutal reality that gripped the town in the latter half of the 20th century. As the Mafia's power and influence grew, so too did the violence and corruption that lay at its core. Corleone became a battleground in the 1970s and 1980s, a crucible of violence as rival Mafia factions, vying for control of lucrative drug trafficking routes, waged a bloody war against each other. The town, once known for its tranquility and rustic beauty, was stained with the blood of countless victims, its streets echoing with the sounds of gunfire and the anguished cries of those who dared to defy the Mafia's rule. At the heart of this reign of terror was a new breed of mobster, men like Luciano Leggio, Salvatore Riina and Bernardo Provenzano, who hailed from Corleone and whose ruthlessness knew no bounds. They were the architects of a new era of Mafia violence, one that would spread far beyond the borders of Sicily, leaving a trail of blood and fear in its wake. Gone were the romanticized notions of honor and tradition that had once cloaked the Mafia's brutal reality. These new godfathers were driven by greed, ambition, and a chilling disregard for human life. They were the embodiment of the Mafia's descent into darkness, their legacy a stain on the very soul of Corleone. From the heart of this crucible of violence emerged the Corleonesi, a mafia faction so ruthless and powerful that they would come to dominate Cosa Nostra, both in Sicily and beyond. Led by the enigmatic and terrifying figure of Salvatore Riina, known as Toto Ukutu, Toto the Short for his diminutive stature, the Corleonesi waged a campaign of terror that left countless enemies, both within the mafia and outside it, dead or fearing for their lives. Riina, a man of peasant origins and chilling intelligence, had a vision for the mafia that extended far beyond the traditional rackets of extortion and protection. He recognized the immense profits to be made from drug trafficking, and he ruthlessly exploited this new revenue stream, forging alliances with Colombian drug cartels and establishing a vast international distribution network. Under Riina's iron-fisted rule, the Corleonesi became synonymous with a level of violence and intimidation that shocked even seasoned observers of the mafia. They assassinated judges, politicians, journalists, and anyone else who dared to stand in their way. Their reign of terror reached its peak in the early 1990s with the assassinations of Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, two courageous anti-mafia magistrates who had dedicated their lives to bringing Riina and his associates to justice. The brutal killings of Falcone and Borsellino, however, proved to be a turning point. Public outrage, both in Italy and internationally, reached a fever pitch, forcing the Italian government to finally confront the mafia head-on. A massive crackdown ensued, leading to the arrest and imprisonment of Riina in 1993 and the eventual dismantling of the Corleoneses' reign of terror. The echoes of footsteps, heavy and purposeful, fade into the silence of a deserted alleyway. The scent of cigar smoke lingers in the air, a phantom reminder of conversations held in hushed tones, of deals struck and promises made, often sealed in blood. The legacy of the mafia, of the real-life godfathers who inspired both fear and fascination, is a tangled web of power, corruption, and enduring allure. Frank Costello, the shrewd diplomat, may have died in relative obscurity, his empire dismantled. But his story serves as a chilling reminder of the seductive power of influence and the ease with which corruption can seep into the very fabric of society. His ghost lingers in the halls of power, a cautionary tale whispered in the ears of those who seek to wield power without accountability. Carlo Gambino, the silent king who ruled with an iron fist cloaked in discretion, left behind an empire built on fear and respect. His ability to command loyalty, to inspire both dread and unwavering obedience, cemented his place in the annals of organized crime, a testament to the seductive allure of power and the seductive nature of absolute control. Lucky Luciano, the architect of the modern mafia, may have spent his final years in exile, but his vision for a structured, ruthlessly efficient criminal enterprise continues to shape the landscape of organized crime to this day. His creation, the Commission, a council designed to maintain order and maximize profits, proved to be a blueprint for criminal success, a testament to his strategic genius and his chilling understanding of human nature's darker impulses. And what of Corleone, the small Sicilian town that lent its name to a fictional family and became forever intertwined with the mythology of the mafia? The echoes of violence may have faded, the cobblestone streets now bustling with tourists drawn to the town's notoriety. But the legacy of men like Riina and Provenzano, the Corleonesi who ruled with an iron fist, serves as a stark reminder of the human capacity for brutality and the seductive allure of absolute power. The Mafia, though weakened by years of relentless law enforcement pressure and internal strife, has not vanished. It has adapted, morphed, and in some cases gone legitimate, its tendrils reaching into new and lucrative ventures, its influence still felt in the worlds of finance, politics, and international commerce. The legacy of the real-life Godfathers is a complex and contradictory one. They were ruthless criminals responsible for countless acts of violence, extortion and corruption. Yet they were also products of their time and circumstance, men who rose from poverty and discrimination to achieve a twisted version of the American dream. Their stories, as brutal and compelling as any work of fiction, continue to fascinate and repulse in equal measure. We are drawn to their audacity, their ambition, and the sheer audacity of their crimes. They are, in a strange way, both anti-heroes and cautionary tales, reminding us of the seductive nature of power and the fine line that separates ambition from ruthlessness. The Godfather's echo reverberates through popular culture. Its themes of loyalty, betrayal, family, and the corrupting influence of power as relevant today as they were when Mario Puzo first put pen to paper. The films, the books, the countless imitations, they all serve as a reminder of the enduring fascination with the Mafia, a world where the rules are different, where violence is a currency, and where even the most heinous acts can be justified in the name of family and tradition. The world has changed since the days when men like Costello, Gambino and Luciano ruled their empires. The Mafia, at least in its traditional form, has been weakened, forced to adapt to a world of globalization, technological advancements and increased law enforcement scrutiny. But the allure of power, the desire for wealth and influence, these are timeless human desires. And as long as these desires exist, there will always be those willing to exploit them, to operate in the shadows, to build their empires on a foundation of fear and corruption. The cycle continues, though the players may change. The line between right and wrong, between legitimate business and criminal enterprise blurs. And the question remains, are we drawn to these stories because they horrify us, or because on some level we envy the power these men wielded, the control they exerted over their world? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in the shadows, as elusive and enduring as the legacy of the Godfathers themselves.